Today's lesson is discussing the wonders of the cosmos. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to focus on astronomy, which is the study of the sky and the stars and galaxies and planets and things like that. And we've got a conversation taking place between Tyler and Layla. And first of all, they're going to be talking about an upcoming celestial event.
Very interesting. We have that rather powerful title, Discovering the Wonders of the Cosmos. And when you see cosmos, unless you're a scientist who really cares about the details, for most of us, the cosmos is like saying the wonders of space, the wonders of the galaxy, the wonders of the universe, the wonders of all those wonderful things, those lights, those objects that we know are out there floating above our heads out in space, which of course reveal themselves best at night. So we're going to be talking about a celestial event. Wow, that's a pretty special thing. If you're into astronomy, if you're into space science, celestial events might be something you do actually put on your calendar. Things like meteor showers and eclipses and things like that. And of course, these happen rarely, and also depends often on where you are in the world and even the weather that day or that evening or that night, if you'll be able to see them. So let's see if things line up for our two characters. We have Tyler and Layla here, and let's get into their little chat about a very exciting celestial event that will be happening out there in the cosmos in a short time. Discussing the wonders of the cosmos. Talking about a celestial event. While reading the news, Tyler comes across an article that he excitedly shares with Layla. Hey, did you see this article? There's going to be a blood moon next month.
A blood moon? That sounds intense. What is it exactly?
It's actually a total lunar eclipse. It happens when the Earth moves directly between the sun and the moon, and the sunlight that normally lights up the moon is blocked.
So why is it called a blood moon? Does the moon really turn red?
Kind of. Instead of going completely dark, the moon looks red. That's because some sunlight passes through the Earth's atmosphere, bends, and then hits the moon. The atmosphere filters out most of the blue light, so only the red tones remain.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. So it only happens during a full moon?
That's right. A blood moon only occurs when the moon is full, since that's when the entire face is lit by the sun. But most full moons don't turn red, because the moon usually misses the Earth's shadow.
So everything has to line up just right?
Yep, and when it does, we get a beautiful blood moon.
大家好，标题中看到名词 cosmos 表示宇宙，例如 There is still no agreement among scientists on whether there is life elsewhere in the cosmos. 宇宙中其他地方是否有生物，科学家们还是没有共识。也可以说 The telescope allows us to explore the hidden corners of the cosmos. 这台望远镜让我们得以探索宇宙的隐秘角落。后面看到形容词 celestial， 它的意思是天的或是天空的。例如 The telescope photographed several distant celestial bodies. 望远镜拍下了几个遥远天体的影像。再看一个例子 Many classic paintings feature celestial beings and religious themes. 许多古典的画作会结合天使与具有宗教意味的主题。下一个介绍名词 atmosphere， 它的意思是大气层。例如 The spaceship entered Earth's atmosphere. 太空船进入了地球的大气层。或者 The rocket successfully made it out of the atmosphere. 那枚火箭成功脱离大气层。再来看到动词 filter， 表示过滤。例如 Oscar filtered the water so that it was safe to drink. Oscar 把水过滤过，以便安全饮用。或是 The water in the fish tank is regularly filtered to keep it fresh and clean. 鱼缸里的水会定期过滤，以确保新鲜干净。
Okay, so again, today we're discussing the wonders of the cosmos, the universe, stars and planets and things like that. And first of all, in part one, we're talking about a celestial event. Notice I said celestial. That is the American pronunciation. I assume celestial is the Canadian pronunciation.
I think we're pretty fluent at both, so both would be acceptable.
Okay, so keep that in mind when you talk about this particular subject with people. And, of course, they're reading the news, and Tyler comes across an article, and he excitedly shares this article with Layla. Okay, so he's excited about astronomy, and he wants to share it with his friend.
All right, so Tyler says, hey, did you see this article? So clearly, he's read something and he wants to share the news, and he's also wondering if Layla might already know the news. But if she doesn't, he goes on to give her a very brief description. There's going to be a blood moon next month. All right, so that's the main point of the article. That's the main information or news in the article, and he's clearly very excited about it. Layla, though, is clearly a little confused by that.
Yeah, she has never heard of this before. She says, a blood moon? What the heck is that? That sounds intense. What is it exactly? Okay, so if something's intense, that means it has a lot of energy behind it. It has a fierce kind of quality to it. And yes, it does sound intense. It's not just a regular lunar eclipse, but it's a blood moon. So yeah, maybe there's some violence involved in this particular celestial event. We don't quite know. I'm sure Tyler is going to explain to Layla what a blood moon is exactly.
There you go. We can use intense for, of course, things like power, intense winds, intense storms. We can also use it, though, just to describe something that's kind of a powerful experience, maybe a little bit frightening, like I saw a really intense horror movie, or in the store yesterday, there was an intense argument between a customer and one of the workers. It was a little powerful, a little shocking, a little scary. And, of course, the name Blood Moon, thinking of the moon turning to blood, that's powerful. That's a scary, slightly frightening image. So what's going on there? Well, Tyler explains it's not quite as intense as it sounds. It's actually a total lunar eclipse. So that's what it would be called from a scientific point of view, a total lunar eclipse. And what exactly is that? It happens when the Earth moves directly between the sun and the moon, and the sunlight that normally lights up the moon is blocked. So basically, the moon moves into the shadow of the Earth, blocking the light from the sun that normally falls on the moon, making it that nice bright sort of white color at night. Well, that light is now being blocked. It's being put in shadow by the Earth, blocking that sunlight reaching the moon, so it changes the color of the moon to, you guessed it, a reddish type of color.
Right on. So here's what Layla says. So why is it called a blood moon? Does the moon really turn red? So yes, it's an unusual term for the moon when it's in the shadow of the Earth. You can actually still see it. If you've seen a lunar eclipse before, you know the moon has not totally disappeared. It's still illuminated to a certain degree. But she's kind of guessing here, does the moon really turn red during a lunar eclipse?
And Tyler says kind of, which is like saying sort of, a little bit, but not totally red. So yes, but not 100%, basically. Kind of. He says instead of going completely dark, the moon looks red. That's because some sunlight passes through the Earth's atmosphere, bends, and then hits the moon. So yes, the Earth is blocking most of the sunlight from the sun from reaching the moon, but not all of it. Of course, some of that sunlight will get around the Earth through the atmosphere, and where it will bend, where it will sort of refract and shift, and then it hits the moon. When we talk about the atmosphere, that is that bubble of air, gases, oxygen being one of the most important, that surrounds the Earth. It gives us air to breathe. It gives us weather. That gives us clouds. That gives us winds. That's the atmosphere. Of course, when people are going to space, the hardest part is breaking out of Earth's gravity and getting through the atmosphere. And in the same way, when you see those spaceships or the space shuttle back in the old days come back to the Earth, it kind of goes through that process where it's almost burning up as it reaches the atmosphere and goes through those thin layers, but rather thick actually in terms of kilometers, but thin layers of gas and oxygen The atmosphere protects us on the Earth, gives us air to breathe, and also protects us from radiation and other things from space. But it will bend some of the light as the light goes around the Earth. When that light hits the moon, it has a slightly different color. It says the atmosphere filters out most of the blue light, so only the red tones remain. For the same reason we have a blue sky, it's because the atmosphere is filtering out some of the light that comes from the sun, and the same thing happens as that light passes through the atmosphere on the way to the moon. To filter something is to basically provide some kind of surface with small holes in it, and that will allow certain things to pass through and other things to be caught. When we think of making coffee, we put our coffee in a filter so that the water can go through, bringing some of that rich coffee flavor, but the little crunched up parts of the coffee bean, that will be saved. Also, if you have an air conditioner, you want to clean the dust filters, the things that stop dust from getting sucked into the machine and then blown back into the room. That dust will be caught in that filter. Oh, wow, says Layla. That's fascinating. So this is all very new, wonderful, and interesting science that she is hearing for the first time, and she finds it very, very interesting. If something is very interesting, fascinating is another great word you can use to describe it. You've been reading that book for 5 hours. What's it about? Oh, it's a fascinating history book about ancient Rome or something. It's really, really interesting. And then she says, so it only happens during a full moon? We can only get that blood moon effect during a full moon, during that phase of the moon's monthly progress across the sky?
Okay, and Tyler knows about these things. He says, that's right. A blood moon only occurs when the moon is full, since that's when the entire face is lit by the sun. Well, all total lunar eclipses happen when the moon is full, for that matter, not just during a blood moon. But most full moons don't turn red because the moon usually misses the Earth's shadow. So at other times when there isn't a lunar eclipse, the moon is passing behind the Earth, but it is not going into the shadow of the Earth. The moon is actually quite far away from the Earth, so it's kind of very rare for the moon to be in the Earth's shadow. It kind of goes above it or below it, and it only happens about twice a year or so that it actually goes into the Earth's shadow. And yes, indeed, most of the time, the moon misses the Earth's shadow. It just passes by.
There you go. So everything has to line up just right, asks Layla, because she understands this concept. And yes, to get that blood moon, the moon has to be exactly directly in the shadow of the Earth. It has to line up exactly. Here you can actually think of things being put in a line, the way soldiers, when they're on parade, they all look very organized in blocks with 8 soldiers on one side, 8 soldiers on the other, and everyone else lined up in perfect formation. So when things line up, they are actually organized in a way. And we can use this to talk about things that aren't just being placed in a very organized way, like items on a table or soldiers in a field. We can also use it to talk about details and plans. If you want to fly to another country, you might have to make sure that your flights line up. Everything is organized. So you arrive in Hong Kong at a certain time, and then your next flight leaves an hour later, allowing you time to reach it. Everything is organized. Everything is planned out. Everything will work very well because everything is lined up. Everything is set to be just right.
And Tyler says, yep, that's for sure. And when it does, we get a beautiful blood moon. Okay, let's move on now to part 2. We're falling in love with astronomy. Tyler and Layla continue their discussion of astronomy. Let's listen.
Falling in love with astronomy. Tyler and Layla continue their discussion of astronomy. I didn't know you were so into astronomy.
Oh, yeah. I've been fascinated by the stars and planets since I was a kid. I used to lie in the backyard and stare up at the sky for hours.
That's so cool. Do you still stargaze often?
Definitely. I even use a stargazing app on my phone. Just point the phone at the sky and the app can identify the stars and planets for you. It's amazing how much you can learn with just a few taps.
That sounds so fun.
It is. I also love visiting astronomical museums. They're full of info about space, and the best part is using their telescopes. You can see distant planets, star clusters, and even galaxies.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. Honestly, I used to think astronomy was too complicated to enjoy.
A lot of people think that, but it can be really simple and fun.
Well, count me in for your next stargazing night.
第二部分介绍名词 astronomy， 表示天文学。可以说 I love looking at stars, and I hope to study astronomy in college. 我喜欢观星，并希望能在大学主修天文学系。又或者说 For our next astronomy class, we'll be locating various planets in the sky. 在我们的下一节天文课中，我们将定位天空中的各种行星。继续看到名词 backyard， 表示后院。可以说 Let's have a barbecue in the backyard this weekend. 这个周末我们去后院烤肉吧。再一句 Mr. Shaw waters the lawn in his backyard every morning. Shaw 先生每天早上都会在后院的草坪上浇水。下一个介绍动词 identify， 指的是辨识、确认或是认出。举例来说 The doctor identified why the patient was in so much pain. 那名医生确认了让该病患如此痛苦的原因。或是 Officials could not identify what caused the fire. 官员无法确认是什么引起了火灾。最后看到形容词 complicated， 表示复杂的或是难懂的。可以说 The design of the machine is quite complicated, so it isn't easy to fix. 这款机器的设计相当复杂，因此不容易修理。最后一个例子 The plot of the movie was too complicated for young children to follow. 这部电影的情节太复杂了，年幼的孩子无法理解。
Okay, we are back with part 2. We've been talking about astronomy. In our first dialogue, Tyler was explaining all about blood moons to Layla. She didn't really know about them. She thought the name sounded interesting, and so he explained lunar eclipses and things like that, and she found it very interesting. So part 2 is a natural sequel to that. It says falling in love with astronomy. If you find something very interesting and it really turns you on, it makes your brain go, ooh, I like this. I want to learn more. We can often use that term, falling in love with history or falling in love with French cooking or something like that. It's something I've discovered and I really like it. I want to know more. I want to get better at it, take some classes, read some books, develop my knowledge because it is very, very interesting to me. So what's going on here? Tyler and Layla continue their discussion of astronomy because, of course, the blood moon is happening soon, so it seems a good time to talk about other wonderful things, astronomical. So Layla begins. She says, I didn't know you were so into astronomy. So yeah, clearly Tyler is into astronomy. If you're into something, you really like it. It's a hobby, it's a passion, it's a pastime of yours. Anything that is your hobby or passion or pastime that you would love to be doing when you have free time, that is clearly something you're really into. It could be gardening, it could be video games, it could be learning to play the saxophone. It's just something you really, really enjoy. And for most of us, it might be something that we enjoy in our free time. If you're really into your work, well, you're a very lucky person because you love what you do. But for a lot of us, those passions might turn into pastimes and hobbies because we like them. We're really into them.
Yes, indeed, Tyler is into astronomy, and Layla did not know this, and Tyler says, oh, yeah, I've been fascinated by the stars and planets since I was a kid. Indeed, if you grow up in the countryside, I think you'll probably have the chance to see stars at night better than you would if you live in the city. And he says, I used to lie in the backyard and stare up at the sky for hours. So, yes, a lot of people in North America, and I'm sure in other parts of the world, live in a house, and then there's an area of grass in front of the house, and there's an area of grass in the back of the house. So that would be the backyard behind your house where you can go play games or have a sandbox or something. Some people will have a swimming pool back there if they have a lot of money. And then the front yard, of course, is in front of the house with a nice lawn and things like that. And he would lie in the backyard and stare up at the sky for hours looking at those stars and seeing shooting stars and looking for galaxies and what have you.
There you go. Very cool. Wonderful way to spend a summer evening if you're so lucky. And Layla says, that's so cool. That's a pretty wonderful thing, a wonderful image. And she uses a great sentence here, a great verb here for looking at those stars. Do you still stargaze often? Yeah, stargazing. That's the action of looking at the stars. I mean, you could be doing it in a professional way, maybe using a telescope or some kind of looking device, some kind of scientific equipment to help you see further. but also just lying on your back, gazing up at the stars. That's stargazing as well. So if you just enjoy looking at the night sky, you might enjoy stargazing. And she's wondering if it's something he still does, because of course he did it as a kid, but how about now?
He says, definitely. I even use a stargazing app on my phone. You can download an app for your phone if you're into astronomy. Just point the phone at the sky, and the app can identify the stars and planets for you. To identify just means to tell you the name of something, like that star is Sirius, or there's Betelgeuse, or there's Rigel, or whatever. It can identify the stars and the planets for you, like Saturn, Jupiter, Mercury, or whatever. It's amazing how much you can learn with just a few taps. If you have it on your screen, you can tap your screen and find out what the stars are. You could probably even find the constellations for you.
That is pretty cool. And as Layla says, that sounds so fun. Being able to use an app and identify those stars and learn a little bit about the sky over your head. That is interesting and fun. And Tyler agrees it is. And he adds, I also love visiting astronomical museums. Okay, so it's not just stargazing that he loves. He loves to go to museums as well. And yes, when we're talking about the field of astronomy or space science, studying the stars and the planets and all that other stuff that's up there in the sky at night, we're talking about astronomy, and the adjective would be astronomical. So if I like astronomical museums, I like museums filled with space science and information about the planets and stuff where I can learn about space. And he says they're full of info about space, and the best part is using their telescopes. Wow, if you're lucky enough to use a real proper telescope like they might have at an astronomical museum or an observatory, which is one of those specialized scientific facilities for looking at the night sky, then you're very, very lucky. And yes, telescopes, those are some of the most powerful looking devices that we can see, which can, of course, see millions and millions of miles to the most distant places of the galaxy, both with light, and they also have radio telescopes, right, that use different types of signaling or different types of equipment to look far, far, far into space. And what can you see there far in space? He says you can see distant planets, star clusters, and even galaxies. And the way I understand it, you can also kind of see back in time, since light travels quite slowly across the huge expanses of space.
And Layla says, wow, that sounds wonderful. It's pretty cool. Honestly, I used to think astronomy was too complicated to enjoy. If something's complicated, there are a lot of things that you have to learn about it. It's complicated. It has lots of different parts, lots of different elements and things like that, like figuring out the redshift, the light spectrum of stars, the eccentricity of the orbits and things like that. Yes, it can be quite complicated, but still most people can still enjoy it. If you have a telescope and you can look at the rings of Saturn, that would be really cool. And Tyler says, well, a lot of people think that, but it can be really simple and fun. It doesn't have to be so complicated.
Well, count me in for your next stargazing night. Looks like Layla has become a bit of astronomy fan herself, and she wants to be counted in. She wants to be included on Tyler's next stargazing night. When you say count me in, you're saying include me, please. I'm interested. I want to be part of that. So if you're counting the number of people who are going on your trip, count me as well, or count me in, include me, because I want to be looking at those stars, and I'm sure she will with Tyler, and maybe they'll have a great view of the upcoming blood moon eclipse. Wouldn't that be cool?
It would be cool, and it's also cool to listen now to our Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分的对话一开始， Tyler 他在看新闻，无意间发现一篇文章。好，文中用到 come across 来表达无意间发现的意思。那这边就来整理 come across 的不同用法。首先是课文用法， come across 是做及物用，表达碰巧遇到、偶然发现，它就跟 come upon 或是 bump into、run into 或是 run across 等等意思相同，后面可以接人或事物。例如 We came across a charming cafe a few days ago. 我们在几天前偶然发现一间迷人的咖啡简餐店。好，第二个 come across 可以当不及物用，表达使产生什么样的印象，那么后面可以接 as 加上名词或形容词，表达给人怎么样的印象或感觉，或者是表现的怎么样怎么样。 come across 后面也可以接上 negatively 或是 well 等等的副词来修饰。好，我们造个例句。She came across as a very intelligent person. 她给人的印象是个非常聪明的人。第三个 come across 可以当不及物用，还可以指说某想法被清楚表达了解的语义，像His passion really came across when he talked about his job. 当他在聊他的工作时，可以看得出他的热忱，也就是他讲话的方式清楚传达了他对工作的热情。好，那么在课文第二部分的对话里， Tyler 聊到他从小就对星星和行星极感兴趣。他说 I used to lie in the backyard and stare up at the sky for hours. 我以前常常躺在后院盯着天空看好几个小时。这边我们来补充一下 used to 跟get used to 或 be used to 的用法差异。首先 used to 表示过去经常怎么样，过去一向是怎么样，带有现在情况已经不再是如此的语义。那么 used to 后面要接原形动词，例如 He used to shower twice a day. 他以前一天冲澡2次，那这意味着他现在没有这种习惯咯。至于 get used to 或是 be used to 表示习惯于或适应于做某事，后面是接名词或动名词。那么 get used to 或者是 be used to 这两者的些微差异在于 get 强调逐渐习惯于什么什么动作， be 动词则是用来表达习惯于什么什么状态。那这边造2个例句。 He's getting used to the weather here. 他逐渐习惯这边的天气了。或是 He's used to showering at night. 他习惯晚上冲澡。那注意我们前面是用 He used to shower 来表达他以前冲澡的习惯，这边则是用 He's used to showering 来表达他现在冲澡的习惯。好，那以上是今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Intense. Kevin gave an intense performance on stage that left the entire audience in silence. Atmosphere. Jessica studies how pollution affects the atmosphere and contributes to global warming. Filter. Our house has a machine that filters dirty water into clean drinking water. Fascinating. Michael found the history of ancient Egypt quite fascinating. Backyard. Lucas built a treehouse for his children in the corner of the backyard. Identify. We tried to identify the plant species by carefully studying the shapes of its leaves. Complicated. The teacher explained the complicated math problem using simple words and clear steps.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.